My son-in-law raised his hand against my daughter, unaware my sergeant husband was watching cameras. Have you ever had that moment when the world stops? When everything you built, everything you protected, crumbles before your eyes in a matter of seconds? I had that moment. And it was through a computer screen. My name is Margaret. I'm 52 years old. And for 28 years I've been married to Daniel, a police sergeant known for his rigidity, discipline, and a sense of justice that bordered on obsessive. But that day I would discover there's a brutal difference between justice and revenge. Everything started 3 years ago when our daughter, Emma, 24, introduced us to Marcus. He was charming, well-dressed, worked in marketing for a big company. He had that easy smile that won anyone over. Daniel didn't like him from the first handshake. "There's something wrong with him," Daniel told me that night. In his eyes. "I know this type." I laughed. I thought it was just an overprotective father not wanting to accept his daughter was growing up. How wrong I was. 6 months later, Emma announced she was pregnant. The wedding was quick, small, simple, just close family. Marcus seemed genuinely happy. Emma was radiant. Daniel remained silent throughout the entire ceremony, his jaw tense. During their honeymoon, my husband did something I would only discover much later. He installed a security camera system in the house we gave as a gift to the young couple. "It's to protect her," he justified when he finally confessed months later. "A father needs to make sure his daughter is safe. I should have fought with him, should have demanded he remove those cameras." But something in the tone of his voice, that police instinct sharpened by decades on the streets, made me hesitate. So, I let the cameras stay. The months passed. Emma gave birth to our beautiful granddaughter, Sophie. Visits became frequent. I went there almost every day to help with the baby. Everything seemed normal, perfect even. But Emma was changing. She was losing weight too quickly. The spark in her eyes was fading. Dark circles appeared under her eyes that makeup couldn't hide. "I'm just tired, Mom," she'd say whenever I asked. "Taking care of a newborn is exhausting." Marcus was always around during my visits, always with that perfect smile, always saying the right things. But I started noticing small details. How Emma would flinch slightly when he entered the room suddenly. How her hands would tremble when he asked her something. How she'd glance at him before answering any of my questions, as if seeking permission. Daniel noticed too. I could see it in the way he watched Marcus during family dinners, studied him like a suspect in an interrogation room. But we had no proof of anything, just a terrible feeling growing in our guts. Then came that Tuesday afternoon, the afternoon that changed everything. Daniel was in his home office doing paperwork, with his multiple monitors displaying various camera feeds. It was his routine, checking the cameras periodically throughout the day. I was in the kitchen preparing dinner when I heard him. Not a yell. Something worse. A sound I'd never heard from him in 28 years of marriage. A strangled gasp, almost animal-like. I dropped the knife I was holding and ran. When I reached his office, Daniel was standing, both hands pressed against his desk, staring at one of the monitors with an expression of pure rage I'd never seen before. His face had gone completely white, except for 2 red spots high on his cheeks. "Daniel, what?" I started. But he held up one hand, silencing me, his eyes never leaving the screen. Then he pointed with a shaking finger. I moved closer and looked at the monitor. It was the camera in Emma's living room. The image was crystal clear, high definition, showing every detail. Emma was standing near the couch, holding Sophie, who was crying. Marcus was in front of her, his body language aggressive, leaning forward into her space. I couldn't hear what they were saying. Daniel had the sound muted, but I didn't need to. I could see everything. Marcus's face was contorted with anger, his finger jabbing toward Emma accusingly. She was backing away, clutching Sophie tighter, her face filled with fear. Pure, undiluted fear. Then it happened. Marcus raised his hand. Not all the way, not in a full swing, but enough. A threatening gesture, a promise of violence. Emma flinched violently, turning her body to shield Sophie, her mouth opening in what I knew was a plea. The hand didn't come down, not yet, but the threat hung there in the air like a blade. Daniel's hand shot out and grabbed the mouse, clicking furiously to save the footage. His breathing was harsh, ragged. How long? I whispered. How long? Has this been happening? I don't know. His voice was barely controlled, each word deliberate and cold. But I'm going to find out. He started pulling up archived footage, going back through days, then weeks. We stood there for 2 hours, watching in growing horror as the pattern revealed itself. It had started small, months ago. Marcus standing too close when he was angry, blocking doorways, grabbing Emma's arm a bit too hard. Then it escalated, throwing things near her, not at her, but close enough to terrify, punching walls beside her head. And always, always that raised hand. The threat. That kept her in line without him ever having to follow through. At least not where the cameras could see. The bedroom, I said suddenly. You didn't put cameras in the bedroom. Daniel's jaw clenched. No, I didn't. The implication hung between us, terrible and heavy. What had been happening in the places we couldn't see? Daniel stood abruptly, reaching for his phone. I'm calling it in, getting a patrol car over there right now. Wait, I grabbed his arm. Daniel, think. If you send police there right now, what happens? He gets arrested, maybe. Gets out on bail in hours, and Emma hasn't told us anything. She's been hiding this. If we force this, if we push too hard, she might what? Defend him? Go back to him? Daniel's eyes were blazing. Margaret. He raised his hand to our daughter while she was holding our granddaughter. He's going to hurt them. If he hasn't? Already. I know. Tears were streaming down my face now. I know. But we need to be smart about this. We need to get her out, get them both out safely, and we need evidence that will keep him away for good. Not just a he said she said that gets dismissed. Daniel stared at me for a long moment. And I could see the war raging inside him. The cop who'd sworn to uphold the law versus the father who wanted to destroy the man threatening his child. The father was winning. What are you suggesting? He asked quietly. Too quietly. I should have been terrified by that tone. Looking back, I was terrified. But I was also a mother watching her daughter suffer, and that made me capable of things I never thought possible. We get her out first, I said. Today. Right now. We go there, we get Emma and Sophie, and we bring them home. Then, I hesitated. Then we make sure Marcus understands he can never, ever come near them again. And if he doesn't understand? Daniel's voice had gone flat, emotionless. It was the voice he used before doing something irreversible. Then we make him understand, I said. And hearing those words come out of my mouth, I barely recognized myself. We were in the car within 5 minutes. Daniel drove with the kind of focused intensity that made other vehicles instinctively move out of our way. His hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles had gone bone white. I tried calling Emma 3 times. Each call went to voicemail. The 4th time, Marcus answered. Hi, Margaret. His voice was perfectly pleasant, perfectly normal. Emma's in the shower. Can she call you back? Everything in me wanted to scream at him, to tell him I knew, that we'd seen everything. But I forced my voice to stay light. Oh, that's fine, sweetie. I was just wondering if I could stop by for a quick visit. I made too much lasagna and thought Emma might want some. There was a pause, just a fraction too long. Actually, now's not a great time. Emma's got a headache. She's planning to lie down after her shower. Maybe tomorrow? Of course, I said sweetly. Tomorrow, then. Feel better, Emma. I hung up and looked at Daniel. He's lying. She's not in the shower. Something's wrong. Daniel pressed the accelerator harder. We were 10 minutes from their house. 8 minutes. 5. My heart was hammering so hard I thought I might be sick. What were we going to find? What if we were too late? What if that raised hand had finally come down? When we pulled into their driveway, everything looked normal. The lawn was neatly trimmed. Emma's car was parked in its usual spot. The curtains were drawn, but that wasn't unusual for the afternoon. Daniel was out of the car before it fully stopped. I scrambled after him. He didn't knock. He used the spare key Emma had given us for emergencies. The door swung open silently. The house was too quiet. No baby crying, no television, no sounds of life. Emma, I called out, trying to keep my voice normal. Sweetheart, it's Mom and Dad. We brought food. Footsteps, then Marcus appeared from the hallway. His smile was in place, but his eyes were hard. I told you it wasn't a good time. Where's Emma? Daniel's voice cut through the pleasantries like a knife. Where's my daughter? Like I said, she's resting. She's... Emma! Daniel's voice thundered through the house. Emma, answer me right now. You need to leave. Marcus stepped forward, his jaw tight. You can't just barge into our home and... Emma! I pushed past Marcus, heading for the bedroom. He grabbed my arm, his fingers digging in, painfully, and that's when Daniel moved. I'd seen my husband restrain suspects before, but this was different. This was personal. He had Marcus against the wall in one fluid motion, his forearm across Marcus's throat, his face inches away. Touch my wife again, Daniel said in a voice that promised violence, and I will end you. Do you understand me? Marcus's eyes widened, genuine fear flashing across his face for the first time. He nodded slightly, and Daniel released him, shoving him toward the couch. Sit. Don't move. I ran to the bedroom. The door was locked. Emma? Baby, it's Mom. Open. The door. Silence. Then, so quietly I almost missed it. Go away, Mom. Please. Emma, open this door right now. My voice broke. Please, sweetheart. We know. We know everything. You're safe now. Just open the door. More silence. Then the sound of the lock turning. The door opened a crack, and I saw my daughter's face. Her left eye was swollen, a fresh bruise blooming purple and black. Her lip was split. There were finger-shaped bruises on her neck. The world tilted. Everything went red at the edges. I heard a sound come out of me, something between a gasp and a sob, and then I was pushing. Through the door, wrapping Emma in my arms as she collapsed against me, finally breaking down. I'm sorry, she sobbed into my shoulder. I'm sorry, Mom. I tried. I tried to be better. I tried to do everything right, but nothing I do is good enough, and I was so scared to tell you because I thought, shh, baby, shh. I held her tighter. Where's Sophie? Nursery, she whispered. She's okay. He doesn't hurt her. Just me. Just me. As if that made it any better. As if my daughter being beaten while my granddaughter slept in the next room was somehow acceptable. I heard Daniel's voice from the living room, low and deadly calm, and then Marcus's voice rising in protest. I needed to get back out there before something terrible happened. But first, I needed to get Sophie. I found Sophie sleeping peacefully in her crib, completely unaware of the nightmare surrounding her. I picked her up carefully, holding her close, and walked back to Emma. My daughter was sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at nothing, her arms wrapped around herself. Emma, get some things. Clothes for you and Sophie. Anything important. We're leaving. Now. She looked up at me with hollow eyes. He won't let me. Yes, he will, I said firmly. Your father is handling it. Pack, quickly. She moved like a robot, mechanically pulling items from drawers and closets, stuffing them into a bag. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely grip anything. I wanted to help, but I was holding Sophie, and I wasn't going to put her down. Not here. Not in this house that had become a prison. When we emerged into the living room, the scene had shifted. Marcus was still on the couch, but now Daniel was sitting across from him in the armchair. Perfectly calm, perfectly still. But there was something in his posture, in the way he was watching Marcus, that made my blood run cold. This was Daniel in interrogation mode. Daniel when he'd already decided someone was guilty and was just waiting for them to confirm it. Margaret, Daniel said without looking at me, take Emma and Sophie to the car. I'll be out in a minute. Daniel, go. Now. I hesitated, looking between my husband and Marcus. Marcus's face had gone pale, sweat beading on his forehead despite the air conditioning. He looked terrified, and part of me, a dark part I didn't know existed, was glad. 1 minute, I said to Daniel. Then I'm coming back in. I got Emma and Sophie to the car, buckled Sophie into the car seat we always kept in our vehicle, and settled Emma in the back seat beside her. Emma was crying silently, tears streaming down her bruised face, but she was holding Sophie's tiny hand like it was the only thing keeping her tethered to earth. I'll be right back, I told her. Lock the doors. I walked back into that house, my heart pounding, not sure what I was going to find. Daniel and Marcus were exactly where I'd left them, but the atmosphere had changed. The air felt charged, dangerous. I'm telling you, this is a misunderstanding, Marcus was saying, his voice pitched higher than normal. Emma fell, she's clumsy. She tripped on Sophie's toys and— Don't, Daniel interrupted softly. Don't insult my intelligence. I've heard every excuse, every lie. I've seen men like you my entire career. You think you're smart. You think you're in control, but you made one mistake. What mistake? Marcus tried to sound defiant but failed. You did it where I could see. Daniel pulled out his phone, turned it to show Marcus the screen. I couldn't see what was playing, but I could hear it. Emma's voice pleading, Sophie crying, Marcus yelling, the sound of something hitting a wall. Marcus's face went from pale to gray. You can't. That's illegal surveillance. It won't hold up. In court? Maybe, maybe not, but that's not what I'm worried about. Daniel leaned forward slightly. See, the thing about being a cop for 26 years is you make a lot of friends, and you learn a lot of things about how the system works, how evidence gets lost, how people fall through cracks, how accidents happen. Are you threatening me? Marcus's voice cracked. I'm explaining reality to you, Daniel said. Here's what's going to happen. My wife and daughter and granddaughter are going to leave. You're not going to follow them. You're not going to call Emma. You're not going to text her, email her, or try to contact her in any way. You're going to sign whatever divorce papers she sends you without contest. You're going to give her full custody without a fight. And you're going to disappear from their lives completely. And if I don't, then I'll release this footage. All of it. Every camera, every angle, every moment of you terrorizing my daughter. It'll go to your employer, your family, your friends. Everyone will know exactly what kind of man you are. Marcus's jaw tightened. That's not enough to scare me. Daniel smiled, but there was nothing warm in it. I also know where you were last Tuesday night. The bar downtown. The woman you left with. The hotel room you took her to while your wife was home alone with your infant daughter. The color drained completely from Marcus's face. I know about the company money you've been skimming. Small amounts, clever, but traceable if someone knows where to look. And I know about the DUI you got in college that your daddy made disappear, only it didn't really disappear. Records exist if you know who to ask. You're blacking me, Marcus whispered. I'm giving you a choice, Daniel corrected. You can walk away clean, start over somewhere else, and never look back. Or you can fight this, and I will systematically destroy every aspect of your life. Your job, your reputation, your freedom. I have evidence of assault, evidence of financial crimes, and 26 years of knowing exactly how to make all of it stick. So what's it going to be? The silence stretched between them like a wire pulled taut. I could see Marcus's mind working, calculating, looking for an angle, a way out. But there wasn't one. Daniel had boxed him in completely. Finally, Marcus nodded slowly. Fine, I'll sign whatever papers. I'll stay away. Not good enough, Daniel said. I need insurance. You're going to write a confession. Right now. Detailing everything you've done to Emma. Every time you hit her, threatened her, controlled her. You're going to sign it, date it, and I'm going to keep it. If you ever, and I mean ever, come near my family again, that confession goes straight to the police and the district attorney. Do you understand? That's coerced. It won't hold up. Try me. Daniel's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. Test whether I care about proper legal procedure when it comes to protecting my daughter. I dare you. Marcus stared at Daniel for a long moment, and I saw the exact second he broke. His shoulders slumped, his head dropped, and he nodded again. I'll write it. Daniel pulled out a notebook and pen from his jacket pocket. He'd come prepared. Of course he had. Marcus took them with shaking hands and started writing. It took 15 minutes. 15 minutes of watching this man document his own crimes in painful detail. When he finished, Daniel read it over carefully, then took a photo of every page with his phone before folding the original and putting it in his pocket. One more thing, Daniel said. You have 72 hours to move out of this house. It's in Emma's name, purchased with money we gave her as a wedding gift. If you're still here after 72 hours, I'll have you removed. And it won't be pleasant." Marcus just nodded, defeated, broken. We left him sitting there on that couch, staring at nothing. When we got to the car, Emma looked up at us with red, swollen eyes. "What happened? What did you do?" "We took care of it," Daniel said, his voice suddenly gentle again, the father replacing the sergeant. "He's not going to bother you anymore, sweetheart, I promise." Emma started crying harder, and I got in the back seat with her, holding her and Sophie both as Daniel drove us home. That should have been the end of it. Marcus should have signed the papers, moved out, and disappeared from our lives like a bad dream. But 3 days later, at 2 a.m., I woke to Daniel's phone ringing. He answered. Listened for a moment, then his entire body went rigid. "When?" A pause. "Where is he now?" Another pause. "I'm on my way." He hung up and started getting dressed in the dark. "Daniel, what's wrong?" Marcus violated the restraining order Emma filed. He showed up at the house tonight, tried to break in through the back door. My blood turned to ice. "Is Emma?" "She's fine. She called 911 immediately. But Margaret..." He paused, his voice strange. "Marcus is dead." The words didn't make sense. I sat up, turning on the light. "What? How?" The responding officers found him in the backyard. Single gunshot wound to the chest. No weapon recovered at the scene. Daniel was pulling on his shoes, his movements jerky, mechanical. "They want me to come in for questioning." Questioning? Why would they? And then I understood. The cameras. The threats. The confession Daniel had forced Marcus to write. It all looked like premeditation. Like Daniel had set Marcus up, pushed him to act, so he'd have an excuse to... "You didn't," I whispered. "Daniel, tell me you didn't." He looked at me then, and his eyes were empty. "I was home all night. You know that. I was right here, in bed, next to... you. But I was home, Margaret, all night. That's what you'll tell them if they ask, because it's the truth." He left before I could say anything else. I sat there in our bed, in the dark, my mind racing. Daniel had been next to me all night. I would have known if he'd gotten up, gotten dressed, left the house. Wouldn't I? But then I thought about the confession, about Daniel's connections, his friends on the force, people who owed him favors, people who might do something unthinkable if asked. No, Daniel wouldn't. He was a cop. He believed in the law, in justice, in doing things the right way. Except he'd installed secret cameras. He'd coerced a confession through blackmail and threats. He'd looked Marcus in the eye and told him exactly how he could destroy his life. The next 72 hours were a blur of police interviews, hushed conversations, and terrible silences. Daniel was questioned for 6 hours straight. They searched our house, our cars, checked his service weapon, which hadn't been fired. They pulled phone records, security footage from traffic cameras, everything. And they found nothing. Because Daniel had been home. The ballistics report came back. The bullet that killed Marcus came from a 9mm handgun, common, untraceable. The angle suggested Marcus had been shot by someone roughly his own height, standing close. There were no defensive wounds, suggesting he either knew his attacker or never saw them coming. No fingerprints, no DNA, no witnesses. The raw case went cold within a week. The official theory was that Marcus had made enemies, maybe through his financial schemes or his affairs. Someone had caught up with him at exactly the wrong place and time. Convenient, the lead detective said to Daniel. Too convenient. But without evidence, there was nothing they could do. Emma mourned in a complicated way, crying for the man she'd thought she married, relieved he was gone, guilty for feeling that relief. She and Sophie moved back in with us temporarily while she processed everything and started therapy. One night, about 3 weeks after Marcus's death, I found Daniel in his office staring at the camera monitors. They were all dark now. He'd disconnected every camera from Emma's house the day after Marcus died. "I need to know," I said quietly, closing the door behind me. "I need you to tell me the truth. Did you do it? Did you kill? Did you..." "Him?" Daniel didn't turn around. "I was home all night, Margaret. You know that." That's not what I asked. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, do you remember what you said to me that day? When we saw him raise his hand to her? I remembered. I said we needed to make sure he could never hurt them again. And if he didn't understand, Daniel prompted, then we'd make him understand, I whispered. You said we, Margaret, we. The weight of that word settled over me like a shroud. We, not I. We. The confession he wrote, Daniel continued, still not looking at me. I made copies, sent them to 3 different people I trust. People who love Emma like their own. People who spent years in the military, in law enforcement, who know how to handle problems. I didn't ask them to do anything. I just shared information. Because that's what you do with people you trust. You share your burdens. My hands started shaking. Daniel, one of those people called me that night, after, asked me if I knew Emma had gotten a restraining order, said Marcus seemed like the type who wouldn't respect it, said it would be a shame if something happened because our justice system failed to protect her. He finally turned to look at me, and his eyes were haunted but determined. I told him I hoped nothing would happen, that I trusted the system would work, and then I went to bed next to my wife, and I slept through the entire night without waking once. I understood then. Daniel hadn't pulled the trigger, but he'd loaded the gun, pointed it, and stepped back. He'd created a situation where someone else, someone who owed him, someone who cared about Emma, someone with the skills and the will, would see what needed to be done and do it. Do you know who? I asked. No, and I never will. That's the point. He stood up, walked to me, took my hands in his. I took an oath to uphold the law. I spent my entire career doing exactly that. But I also made a promise the day Emma was born that I would protect her from anything and anyone who tried to hurt her. When those 2 things, conflict. He didn't finish. He didn't need to. Can you live with this? I asked. Can I? He studied my face. That's not for me to answer. You have to decide what you believe happened, what you can accept. I thought about Emma, laughing again for the first time in months just yesterday. About Sophie babbling happily without tension in the house. About my daughter sleeping peacefully without fear for the first time since she'd married Marcus. About the bruises that had finally faded from her skin, if not her memory. You were home all night, I said finally. I know because I was next to you. I would have noticed if you'd left. Daniel's grip on my hands tightened slightly. Yes, I was home all night. We stood there in his office, in the dark, with the blank camera monitors staring at us like dead eyes, and we made our choice. Both of us. Together. The case remains unsolved. Marcus's family held a small funeral that we didn't attend. His company discovered the embezzlement and closed ranks, quietly writing it off to avoid scandal. The other woman disappeared back to whatever life she'd come from. Emma is building a new life now. She started dating again, carefully. Slowly, with her father watching more carefully than ever. Sophie is 2 now, bright and happy and completely unaware of what her first year of life was like. Sometimes I wonder if we did the right thing. If justice and vengeance are really so different when you're protecting someone you love. If the law is enough when the law moves too slowly to prevent harm. I think about that moment. Daniel watching those cameras, seeing Marcus raise his hand to our daughter. The decision that formed in both our minds simultaneously. The understanding that passed between us without words. Some people might, call what happened murder. Cold-blooded. Premeditated. Others might call it protection. A father ensuring his daughter's safety when the system couldn't. I don't know what the right answer is anymore. What I do know is this. I sleep soundly every night next to my husband. Emma is healing. Sophie is safe. And somewhere in a filing cabinet in Daniel's office, there's a confession written in Marcus's handwriting that will never see the light of day. Because it didn't need to. The cameras caught everything we needed to see. And what they didn't catch, well, sometimes the most important things happen in the spaces between what we can prove and what we know is true. Daniel never told me who pulled that trigger. And I never asked again. Some questions are better left unanswered. Some doors are better left closed. and some forms of justice exist outside the reach of cameras and courts and confessions. We did what we had to do, both of us, in our own ways, and we'll carry that weight together for the rest of our lives, because that's what family does.